ready.
All right. So let's just get started from the beginning. Like, can you tell me about a little bit about how you got started in MMA, like where the interest came from and where you first got started?
Yeah, for sure. I wrestled in high school. I guess like a lot of other MMA fighters. And when I was done, I was like, I'm done cutting weight. This was crazy. I don't want to do this anymore. And I kind of stopped doing everything for a little bit, 2 months, and then just that inner, competitive side of me wanted something else. So I just looked up, martial arts in general, and I found jiu-jitsu. So I started doing that, and doing tournaments and stuff. And it was cool because I didn't cut weight. I just did whatever way weighed the tournaments. But then over time, just something more came over me, and I wanted to do more.
And
I found MMA.
Yeah, and then so how did you move from jiu-jitsu to striking? Because I noticed your striking is pretty good too. Like, you seem to fight Muay Thai? Is that correct?
That what?
Do you fight in Muay Thai? Because I noticed you like to clinch a lot. Like,
Yeah,
what did you train striking in?
I do some Muay Thai and stuff, but I guess when I first started, I was just doing jiu-jitsu, to be honest. I would look up YouTube videos, I guess, on striking, and I think my first 3 or 4 fights, I never did a striking class. I just went in there and did my own thing, and get the takedown.
And so, how did you go from deciding to, like, just training to want to dedicate your life to becoming a professional fighter? Like, what was the moment that...
Like I said, it was just for fun. And my wife was like, you're at the gym a lot. Why not take this to the next level, and try fighting? So, I did it for a bit, and I kept winning. And I was going to school and everything at the same time. I finished my degree. And, that's when I got to the point where it was, do I become a teacher if I got my degree for, or do I try this MMA stuff? And I had a pretty good record, so I was like, let me try the MMA stuff for a little bit. I can always go back to teaching.
So you think you'll go back to teaching after you're finished with the UFC?
No.
No?
I think maybe I kind of like...
Or maybe you could teach people in MMA.
Yeah, I love martial arts and everything, so maybe I'll just stick to that, start teaching jiu-jitsu more to kids and that kind of stuff.
So you couldn't see yourself doing anything else, basically?
No, yeah, I'm in martial arts now for life, it's definitely fun.
Okay. And so how did it feel when you first became the featherweight champion?
It was wonderful, When you follow my career, you know that, I started with Cage Warriors USA. Yeah. So to fight for the title, I think it was 10 fights later, was, amazing. And the feeling was just great because, I feel like when I won it, I was actually, I started to skate in the fight, and technique took over, and heart, which is big. I think that's really big in fighters. A lot of fighters lack that, and that's where you see great fighters fail. So, it was just an amazing feeling to actually get that title.
And how did it feel when you first got signed onto the UFC? Was that a goal that you had been shooting for a while?
Yeah, I think that's everybody's goal. If they say they don't want to go to the UFC, it's a lie.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was great. I actually got the email like at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, what is Sean Shelby doing up at 3 a.m. in Vegas? But I had to read it 2 or 3 times, and I was just in awe. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even see who I was going to fight. I was just like, yes. I told my manager I'll fight.
You just accepted the offer immediately?
Yeah.
It must have been really exciting. So, did you ever imagine that you would be so successful? Like, you became a champion and you got signed on the UFC. You've only lost 1 fight. Like, did you ever imagine that you would be so successful?
Like I said, I kind of just did it as a hobby at first. I didn't think anything of it. But I knew once I gave 100% that, that it was either that or nothing. So I wanted to come out there gun blazing. And, I kind of felt if I gave it everything I got, I wasn't going to be successful. So, I'm still improving. I still got so much more to learn. So it's all a learning process for me.
Okay, and so how did you get your name, The Beast? Is that because you fight so aggressively?
no, if you know about comic books and everything, you'll know that the Beast in X-Men is actually the teacher for the X-Men.
Yeah.
He teaches them. So, they were like, you were a teacher, so I kind of got that role out of my team because we all kind of just did comic book things. We're really into comic books, so that's what they kind of started calling me the Beast for.
So you're like a humble teacher, but also like a badass at the same time. So they just called you
the
Beast.
I'm very humble. They say, you wouldn't even think I'm a fighter if you didn't know I was a fighter.
Okay. And so yeah, speaking of how you fight so aggressively, like watching you fight, you fight them like you want to kill them. Like you just constantly move in. Like you waste no time. You just dodge every punch and just eat other punches. You clinch and you knee them in the face and you just throw them down and choke them out. Like why do you fight so aggressively? Like, it's pretty awesome to watch, but, like, is there any reason why you fight so aggressively?
I just always felt, pushing the pace is important, and, if I show, like, look, I'm not going to get tired, I'm going to keep coming at you, and it's gonna tire people out. And I feel like I've fought fighters who are probably better than I am, but, like I said, cardio makes cowards of heroes, So, not having good cardio, I think, kind of messed a lot of people up. So me coming at them and pushing that pace on them, making them actually think about everything they have to do, kind of changes the game a little bit.
Yeah, you never really seem to tire out either. You just kind of like keep pressing the attack. Is most of your training cardio based then for that exact reason?
I basically push myself to limit almost every time I train. Because I'm not walking out of there like, man, what the hell just happened? I get hit by a truck. I feel like I didn't have a good practice. So. CrossFit has helped me a lot, I think, to be honest. That's, lifting weights, pushing your cardio all at the same time. So I think it goes well with MMA.
Okay, and yeah, speaking of, like, over twice of your victories have been, like, by submission, and all but one of those were by choke. Like, I doubt that's a coincidence, so why do you prefer to choke people instead of another submission? Or striking?
I think it all comes to the gym. When I'm training, and I feel like I can put people in chokes, and if they don't tap, they're going to go to sleep. But if I put someone in an arm bar or something and they don't tap, I might hurt them. And I'm not really that much of a violent person. I don't like to hurt people. So, I go for the chokes more because it's less accidents in the gym, to be honest.
Okay. So you just don't want to hurt the person. You're trying to have like good sportsmanship.
I don't really want to hurt people. I like to shake your hand at the end. Let's go get a drink and call it a day.
Okay, so yeah, you definitely are pretty humble then. That's really cool. I didn't know that's why you had done that. So who would you say was your most challenging fight?
Definitely my last fight. Alan Omer from out of Iraq. He was a very tough fighter. I didn't think, to be honest, he was going to be that tough from footage I saw. He took 2 years off before he fought, and then he got the call in the UFC. So I was like, this is going to be, kind of a breeze, I felt. But he was a tough guy, great stand-up, powerful hitter, very strong. And I think, of course, that was my closest fight ever, split decision.
Yeah, that was your only fight that had... Actually, no, never mind. I thought that was your only fight that had went, like, all the way to the end, because usually you seem to beat them pretty quickly.
Yeah, I had that one 5-round decision also, but...
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
The whole fight.
So, at any point, did you think that you might have lost that fight, or were you still pretty confident the whole way?
After the first round, I definitely felt, I don't think I did enough to win the round. It was close, but, in my mind, I thought I didn't do enough, so I knew second and third round I had to come, all out or nothing, because this was it. This is what I worked so hard for. So I definitely picked up the pace, and that was the first fight where I had to dig deep, and that's when, like I said, having heart is very important. That's when my heart took over and decided, this is time to win.
So you just really had to give it your all in that fight?
Exactly.
Okay, and this might be that fight, but I imagine this would probably be against your only loss against Ronald Jacobs. So if you could go back to any fight and fight it differently, which would it be, and what would you do differently?
The Ronald Jacobs fight, yeah, of course I wouldn't want that loss on my record, but I think it helped me a lot. After getting a couple wins, I think I was going to be 5-0 if I won that fight. I was getting pretty confident, maybe a little cocky. And, after that fight, changed the way I train, changed a lot of things. I think that's when I actually started doing stand-up training after that fight because I realized my weaknesses, so, if I can go back, I really take it more seriously, training everything, stand-up, wrestling, because that's what MMA is, it's everything. I can't just go in there and rely on jiu-jitsu. It's not 1990 anymore.
So do you think if you fought him again after you've trained your striking some more, that you would be able to beat him this time?
Yeah, of course. I think I'd win that fight, probably 9 out of 10 times. And I don't think it was just striking. I think I just went in there with the wrong mindset, too,
And what was your mindset going into it?
I already was considering myself 5-0. I already was like, I'm going to walk
through. So you just assumed that you were going to win?
Yeah, of course I always feel like I'm going to win, but it was more like I'm going to walk through this guy,
So you had, no worry at all, no doubt in your mind?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've been there. So you're currently on a 9-win streak. How does that feel? 'Cause I imagine you would be feeling the same. I imagine I would get a little cocky winning 9 times in a row.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't want to get back to that mindset that I had before. So to be honest, I don't even think about it. When people say that, I have to think about it. I'm like, wow, I have won 9 fights in a row. I'm thinking about the next fight. Maybe I might watch my last fight just to see where I can improve and everything. But once it's over, I don't think about those past fights anymore. It's just about the next guy.
Okay. All right. So this will be my last question. Is there anything that you would like to say to any of your fans that would be listening to this interview?
Yeah, for sure. I feel, I have a lot of my fans are, up and coming fighters, amateur fighters, and they're thinking money, they're thinking fame, and I just want to tell them, don't think about that stuff right away. Think about fighting because you love to fight, because it's exciting, because it's something that you want to do, not to get rich, not to get famous. That stuff will come, if you put the hard work in. So basically, just put the hard work in, get in the gym, work hard, and good things will come.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
For sure.